Hey, welcome back to the Incident Investigation Theory and Practice series. Last video we talked about investigating the scene. So you're back at the office. You've finished gathering the data at the scene. Yeah, you got your diagrams and sketches, you got your interviews, you got your photos, and all the other data. Now you're ready to assemble everything and start drawing conclusions. Yeah, no, full stop. There's a bit more information that you need to gather, and I'm talking about pertinent documents. These documents will help to shed some more light in the situation and also clarify a few questions, maybe make you ask some more questions. Hi, my name's Kevin Barrett. I'm a health and safety professional, and I make videos about health and safety here on YouTube. This is the 6th video in the Incident Investigation Theory and Practice series. I'm going to cover a lot about documents and how they pertain to the incident investigation. So if you're new, I'll leave a link to the playlist for the whole series in the description below and at the end of the video. You can stop the video, watch the series first, and then come back to this one, or join into the other series later. It's up to you. But anyway, let's get started. Now, there's 4 types of documents that you're going to need to gather. One is approval documents. These documents, think of approving the tasks and duties being done at the job site. The next one is hazard assessments. We've talked about those in previous videos. Guiding documents, in other words, providing guidance and instruction for the tasks that are being done. And of course, reports on the work being done at the job site. Each is important and each provides clarification for you, the investigator. So let's look at each one or each set of documents and how they pertain to what you're going to need to look at. So the first thing is approval documents. These documents, as I said, are approval for the tasks and duties being done. So think of this: operator certification and licenses. If there was equipment involved, were the operators certified as competent, or did they require licenses to even operate the equipment? You'll need to look at getting copies or even some verification. You might need to talk to your HR department or even just ask the people involved for copies of their licenses or certification if need be. The next thing is the machinery certification. Often machinery will need to be, approved for use annually in a lot of different jurisdictions. A good example is overhead hoists and cranes. In many jurisdictions, they need annual recertification in order to be used on the job site. Were these certifications present, and can you obtain them? The next thing is commissioning certificates. Depending on the systems or machinery, they may need to be commissioned prior to being used on the job site. A good example is air handling units or air extraction units. A lot of times these will need to be commissioned and certified prior to being put into use. They may even need or require annual recertification. You'll need to look into that. I've talked about hazard assessments, and I talk about them lots in these video series that I do. So they're also an important part for your investigation, and they're an important part for your research. And these hazard assessments are the job hazard assessment, and you're going to have to pull copies for each of the positions involved. So in other words, if a person's a forklift operator, you'll need to pull the hazard assessment that you've done or has been done for forklift operators. Same thing if there's a person who's a warehouse laborer that was involved, you'll need to pull their hazard assessment. The next thing to consider is the field level hazard assessment, especially in the situation where it's a new job or a new set of duties or a new work site, such as a construction or demolition site. Were these available? Were they done? And you're going to need to pull them and compare them to your findings from the incident scene. The next thing, of course, is other risks analysis that were performed. A good example is if this is a construction project, a lot of times the construction projects will have at each stage a risk analysis being done. You'll need to see if you can get a hold of these risk analysis and see if they addressed any of the events or situations that were present during the incident. You'll have to ask yourself some additional questions while you're reviewing these documents. Were the tasks accurately described? Were the hazards pertinent to these tasks described in the documents? And were there controls there? Were the documents complete? Were the controls being used? Were they considered? Were the documents up to date? A lot of times, my finding has been the job hazard assessments will be often neglected or out of date. The next thing you want to look at is guiding documents. I mentioned a couple of them in the previous video I did, safety data sheets and original equipment manufacturer manuals. Now, there's more guiding documents besides those. The very first one I want to talk about is employee orientations. Your organization should be orienting all new employees when they start work, and part of that orientation should be all of the hazards that they're going to encounter and the controls to mitigate those hazards, as well as all of the safe work procedures. So a job site orientation or an employee orientation is going to do a lot to provide due diligence, and it will give you some springboards to other questions. The other thing you're going to want to look at as far as guiding documents are safe work procedures or safe work guides. These differ from original equipment manufacturer documents because what they do is they are company or job site specific. So if you have access to these documents, they're going to go a long ways to helping you in your investigation. The next thing you're going to want to look at is posted rules at the worksite. A lot of times worksites will have posted rules. They'll have signage about PPE is required or don't walk here, etc. The other thing about posted rules, the other way that this applies is especially if there was walking boundaries on the floor and a pedestrian got hit, that walking boundary could be considered, or a walking path could be considered as a posted rule. So you may need to go back and photograph those, etc. The other thing that's important is project schedules. At each segment or each stage of the project, there will be a lot of planning that goes into it, and these documents might help you to shed some light on why things occurred. The other thing to consider about guiding documents, often hazard assessments and risk analyses will quote these documents, so they're important to put together with the previous thing that I talked about, the hazard analysis or the hazard assessments. So the guiding documents can supplement the hazard assessments. You'll want to make sure that, of course, the guiding documents are up to date and they're current. One of the things I find, especially with safe work procedures, is they often become outdated. They'll quote equipment that's no longer being used or in service at the organization. Finally, the last thing is worksite inspection reports. Now, I'm not just talking about the inspection where you walk around the worksite and inspect everything from the fire extinguishers to the equipment and the work processes. Those are pertinent, yes, by all means, but I also need to mention pre-use checklists and pre-trip checklists. That's such a mouthful. And they're very pertinent, especially like say if a piece of machinery was involved. Was the pre-use checklist used, and is it present, and can you use it to compare to some of the events that occurred? It'll help you to show if there was other things such as, and I found them when I've examined and it said hydraulic fluid was low. Well, why did you operate the machine when the hydraulic fluid was low? The next thing you're going to want to look at and pull is any pertinent incident investigations and incident reports. These will help you to show if there's a trend developing or if there was a close call or near miss previous that had similar events. And it might show you a trend. It might show you and reveal a lot of things. Because one of the things that you're going to be doing throughout this whole process that you're doing is asking the question why. And so that leads me to putting this all together. You're going to be asking a lot of whys. And I'm going to address whys and why they're important in a later video. Next video is going to be on timeline, and the video after that is going to be on some causation stuff that you're going to look at. But right now, what you want to do is you want to have all of this data at your disposal. Because the important point is you have to be asking more questions to find answers until you have no more questions to ask and all the answers have been obtained. For instance, take a look at this picture. This is a forklift tip over, and a lot of people will go, wow, how'd that happen? As health and safety professionals, we're going to ask, okay, why did this happen? Why was this person lifting that heavy load? Were they turning with that heavy load? Why did this person make an attempt to do that? Was this person certified? We're going to ask a lot more questions versus just how that happened. Because we want to delve into the root cause or all of the causal factors that created this situation. All of this is going to help you with the next step, and that's assembling all of the follow-up questions. You're going to be assembling them now and when you create your timeline, which we're going to talk about, as I mentioned, in the next video. But you're going to need to be writing down a bunch of the different questions you need to ask of the individuals that were involved or the individuals that witnessed the scene and the situation. Let's put this all together and give it a quick summary. Additional documents will help you to clarify things. Unfortunately, they're also going to provide you with a bunch more questions. And they will springboard you into some follow-up questions, and you're going to be able to get closer to the truth by having these documents. So I want you to think about getting the four documents that are, or four types of documents that are necessary: approval documents, hazard assessment, guiding documents, and reports. It helps you by putting it together to create review questions from the statements that you've gathered, and moves you towards being ready to create a timeline, which we're going to do in the next video. Hey, great. We've reached the end of the video. Before you go, do me a favor. If you like the video, can you click that like button? If you didn't, by all means, you can go ahead and click that unlike button, but do me a favor. Let me know why. Leave a comment below. I appreciate comments. If you're new and you want to know more about health and safety and you haven't done so already, why don't you subscribe? Just click that subscribe button. Actually, it's right down there, but give it a click and ding the bell. You'll get notified of new content. If you're passionate about health and safety, or if you want to learn more, I've got a few links here at the end of the video, and go ahead, click on them. They'll provide you with a bunch more information regarding health and safety. Because the more you learn, the more you know, and the more you know, the more prepared you are to provoke safety at home and in the workplace. So until we see each other again, do me a favor. Think safety, talk safety, do safety. That way you provoke it at home and in the workplace. Thanks. Bye for now.